Country dances were one of the main social events from the mid-19th century to the mid-20th century in central Maine.
After so older, and his wife run it. He played the violin and she played the piano, and they usually had another piece of music.
The kitchen dance was held often after a community event such as a barn raising. A small orchestra, usually consisting of a fiddle or piano or harmonica, served for the music.
Bill Alley, they called him. He lived up on the middle road. He played the harmonica and the spoons. And his wife Lena played the piano. And she sang, oh, she could sing. And she'd sing and he'd play. And they had others singing and playing the harmonica too.
In the beginning of the 20th century, the kitchen dances became outmoded and were replaced with dances held in Grange halls or in other buildings specifically built for dances.
This is one of the oldest dance halls known in South Bristol, Maine. They used to row across the Damariscotta River, which is right down here, to the dances, as well as people who lived in the area on this side of the river. And I never went to one, but I believe it's a true story.
I went to my first dance at Redman's Hall.
Redman's Hall?
They always said it, no formal dress, you could wear your sneakers or anything, but I always remember, I don't know, I might have been 12 or 14, but they used to have dances in that Redman's Hall.
This was the Redman's Hall where they conducted their meetings. Well, I had dances every Saturday night when I was a teenager back in the 40s. And I'm sure before that, came from Booth Bay and everywhere. Damariscotta. Well, they played the fox trot and the two-step. And once in a while, the minuet. There was one old alley man that used to tell about how he loved to dance the minuet. And he really knew how to do it.
Oliver's Hall that burned over Newcastle, where the Gardner Savings is now. It was a big hall. It was downstairs. They took care of the automobile mechanics. The garage upstairs, a beautiful floor with the many dances there.
Lincoln Theater.
Lincoln Theater.
Used
they
to
had
hold
dances. Yeah.
dances.
And they also, that's where our town meetings were held. Lincoln Theater upstairs.
Of course, they had dances at the Masonic Hall, which is called Union Hall, or up by the middle road, going up by that way. And that's the ones that I first remember.
No, I think you'd find the same folks. This is where Ken McKenzie from Portland used to have his, he was a hillbilly, you know. He was on television when he first came out too with his group. He was quite a famous hillbilly.
Oh my God, that's upper road here, this schoolhouse up here is where Howard Davidson started that square dance business. He started right up here. He had his first dances right up here. This schoolhouse is Donio's now, it's right up the road here. And he started his square dancing there, and he had a few records. And of course, Earl came down there with him, because they see he and his father boarded up there, lived up there.
Yes, this is the Christmas Cove Improvement Association building. They have dances here now and have had them for years with live bands. Quite a big dance hall and a stage in there, but I've never been to any functions here at all.
I went usually with either my brothers. I was one of a big family of 12 in my family, and I'd go with my brothers or sisters. Then later on, I'd go with a date. And I got in high school, of course, and I have a date.
Did you go out of town to other halls for dancing?
Sometimes I did. We'd go up in Jefferson. There was a place they went dancing. I can't remember. And over in Pemaquid.
In the early 1900s, around 1915, Louis Pavilion set up in the village, and the family had a problem with their brother, and they forced him to move the Louis Pavilion to which is now called Little Beach. And a local man, Henry Tarr, who disliked the Louis family, gave them the land to put the building on, which is now part of Little Beach. They moved it down here about 1917. And then it became very, very famous, and people would come from East Boothbay and South Bristol by boat and bring some beverages, because the town of Bristol was dry at that time. And as the years went on, I lost my parents, and my aunt, who owned the pavilion, brought me up, so we lived here in the summertime. And it became very famous. For many years, the annual graduation balls of Bristol High School was held at Louis Pavilion. And I believe one of the last ones to be held there was in 1948, and that was the year I graduated. And way back, before I can remember, they would have a battle of music on Tuesday and Thursday nights. And two named bands out of Boston would come here and play. They'd have a battle of music. One band would stop playing, and then another band would start up and play. And it was famous all over the coastal area here. And as things changed, Lakehurst and Damariscotta opened, and it affected this business very much.
Starting in the 1930s and going through the 1950s, the music tended to change a little bit, with the foxtrots being replaced by the jitterbugs. During this same time frame, the bands also expanded to include more pieces, including horns,
This was a barn, and it was taken from over by the big house and hauled over here. I don't know what kind of thing it was, but one horse hauled this barn over here. Must have been in probably 1934, because they started in 1935. It was from Dr. Cook, owned the place over there, and my husband, Lawson, had the hall moved over here and made into a dance hall. Because there wasn't much going on, you know, I mean, except dances at that time. It was dances everywhere. Oh, they had one down around Pond, they had one in North Waldoboro. My father ran that dance hall. They called it the New Century Hall. And that's just been recently torn down. When they had the
I played with Joe Avery,
played
and
with
we
him?
played around Bath,
Yeah.
and then we had some other dances. The one that was very popular was down at Pemaquid Falls.
Yeah.
And then we played at Five Islands and all around in smaller places. But Clevie was out here a lot.
Yeah, he played with Joe Avery a long time.
Yeah, and Lloyd Raffnell. So he could tell you all about this.
The last band that I played at was Joe Avery. People knew Joe had I think it was an 8 or 9 piece band played in Lakehurst, and later on we played Hayes Casino. That's burned now.
And who are some of the people in the band?
Who were the people in well, Bob Rice was a piano player. He lives in Bath, West Bath. Bob is very, very talented person, self-taught piano player, well recognized as a good musician. And Hilton Libby, trumpet, still living. And of course, there's just the three of us that are still living now. Joe Avery was had the band and had he played the drums and the xylophone. Joe had asked me to announce that by request play the 12th Street Rag, and he'd play the 12th Street Rag, but nobody ever asked him to. But that's the way I was to announce them. Of course, I did vocals as well as play lead tenor sax in the band.
Poster was made by my husband, and he had it for the opening dance on July 13th, 1935. Well, the refreshments, he had ice cream, cones, and spoons and plates and straws were $9. And he had 2 boxes of gum, cigarettes, soda, tonic, hot dogs. Hot dogs were $1. And the rolls were 75 cents. Mustard piccalilli was 50 cents. And he had 2 cases of Pale Dry for $1.50. The refreshments that night, they took in $14, and the ticket sold was $45. And the orchestra was $50, and the sheriff was $3. So he really didn't make too much on the first dance. We had one problem.
What was that?
Well, someone came along and hit a gentleman and knocked him down and dove through the window.
Which window was that?
The side of the orchestra. And other than that, we never ever had any problems. They said he looked like a jet. So it was right after the war. But that's the biggest problem we ever had. And after that, we had a deputy inside one all the time.
Okay.
But it's just one of those things that happened.
Oh, the same band was here all season. What was the season, Marie? When was it? When did you cut off in the fall?
Well, we used to cut off at Armistice Day.
Yeah.
And as the crowds got smaller, we came to in October, the 12th of October. Around that time, we cut off.
Well, I know that after Lakehurst would close, the dances that I played at a lot down in the Bristol area would go all winter.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And they were much smaller. The band only had 4 pieces in it, and the crowds were smaller, but the halls were smaller.
Yeah,
we were
yes.
playing the Red Men's Hall and places like that.
Mm-hmm.
When I was a young boy, right out of high school, a group of us boys would get together, and probably we could go dancing 5 nights a week if we wanted to. Like I say, there was a dance at Huntoon. That was over in Wiscasset, Huntoon Grange Hall.
And then we went to Eastern River Grange. Let's go down to Dresden Mills, and turn right to there in the mills and take the route across to Richmond. There was always dances there. Thursdays, and there was this older lady, very full of fun. She was well in her 80s, called Mar Allen. And she liked our group because we never caused any trouble. In the last dance, she'd always come out of the ticket booth and grab one of us, and she said, "This dance is for me." And I've thought of that so often, what a nice sport that lady was. And then, like I say, it was Dyer's Valley they went on. We went to go to dance during that same week period, and then you could go up to Clary Lake. So there was always some dances going on.
When I was growing up, there was a dance somewhere every night in the week, and I attended most of them.
Well, I didn't seem to know him quite that well then, and I was there too. I always said I'd never marry a man that couldn't dance, and I found one.
So he was practicing.
First time I learned how to dance was over to Waldoboro. It's up over a garage, beautiful hall, beautiful floor. And that song, Roll On, Mississippi, Roll On, that's when it first came out, and I always remembered that. It was kind of catchy tune, too, as a dance by. Of course, I had 3 feet to work with, and I didn't make too much progress for a while, but I smoothed out a little bit.
Then there was a dance hall in Union and one in Winslow's Mills that we used to go to.
Yes.
My Uncle Cale played the piano at most of these country dances, and George Jones, the violin,
Yeah.
and Hollis Nelson, the saxophone, and
Cleve Page too? Or?
Cleve Page, yes.
Mhm.
In fact, my Uncle Cale Barstow, who is Theo Barstow's father, was playing over at Huntoon Hill, and he took an ill turn and got downstairs. He thought he had indigestion, and he died that night. You might say, playing the piano.
What a way to go.
Right, and Cleve Page, he had ridden over there with Cleve Page. And Cleve Page came home and broke the news to us.
What about Dyer Valley? Did you?
Oh
Go up to
yes, we've
Dyer.
been there.
I had gone in and bought my ticket, and I started up the stairs, and all at once a man come rolling down the stairs. And I looked around to see if he was okay, and a woman took off a high heel and hit him over the head. Well, everything broke loose. I'll always remember it. I was no fighter, so I got right down and I crawled out, went out the front door, and I said to the deputy sheriff, who was Al Sprague at that time, "You better go in, Al, there's a fight going on." Always said, "Let them wear themselves out, then I'll go and stop it." So that was one of the things. I very seldom went up there, though. I was too young to go to Wits End, but I often heard my uncle, Gerald Alcott, tell about when he was a young man going to Wits End, and the different actions that took place over there. And they had quite a rowdy crowd sometimes, and it was known. That's why I guess you called it Wits End over there.
Huh.
But that's all I remember. I wish I'd asked Uncle Bill more about it, but that's one thing when you're young you should have asked the old timers what went on around this area. Well, that's part of history lost forever if you don't ask somebody and find out.
You don't hear it anymore, simply because they can't afford to put the big band together anymore. And I'm sorry for young people that can't have enjoyed what I enjoyed as a young person. Sad to see something passing like that.